Suburban Sentinel here, along with Bella the camera cat. Finally getting around to part 3 of the in-depth review of the venerable Ruger P95 9mm semi-automatic pistol. Although it's only been a few weeks since finishing part 2 in this series, it is for all intents and purposes a new era. I started this video before Newtown, before gun control became Hollywood chic, and a lot of things have changed in the last few weeks, and not much for the better. Anyway, in part 1 of the review, we took a look at the form, fit, and function of this Ruger P95, and in part 2 we reviewed the ilities, or logistics, reliability, maintainability, durability, interoperability, etc. Here in part 3, we will explore how this Ruger P95 may or may not fit into your collection of firearms. I've already safety checked this gun, but we'll do it once more for posterity's sake. There is no magazine, and the chamber is clear. So first, let's review the inherent advantages or bright spots in this particular handgun. First is the reliability. Again, if you go back to part 2, I think we've established to a reasonable certainty that this Ruger is a very reliable handgun. Again, I purchased 3 of these P95s at the same time and run about 200 rounds or so through each, and I've had absolutely no failures. In addition, the P95 has a solid reputation for reliability in the shooting community. Second is build quality. This gun is exceptionally well built for the price. I don't think that the fit and finish is quite on par with some of the higher end guns, maybe some of the Sig Sauers, and certainly not of the semi-custom handguns, but it is quite good. Third advantage, in my opinion, is the ergonomics. It's a natural pointer, and all of the controls are within easy reach. On a related subject, it's very easy to shoot. The recoil is fairly light, and the gun is very controllable. I shoot this better than the Glock 17 I've been using for many years. The final major advantage of this P95 is its value. I paid under $300 for each of the 3 P95s I bought about a month and a half ago. That in and of itself is an exceptional value, and what's astounding is even with the current run on the supply of guns and ammunition and the shortages, this P95 is still on sale at my local gun shop for $289.95 plus tax. While many of the other Wonder 9s and 40 caliber handguns are getting as scarce as hen's teeth, this P95 is still readily available. There is no perfect gun, so let's take a look at the disadvantages of the Ruger P95. First, and I think foremost, is the goofy controls. The P95, although the magazine release is ambidextrous, it is a push-forward design rather than the conventional push-in design, and that may take some getting used to. I'm going to also ding the P95's manual safety. And in point of fact, this is actually a safety decocker. So the gun is cocked, pulling the safety down decocks the gun and puts the gun in safe mode. I don't mind the decocker. In fact, I prefer it. What I don't like is the manual safety. I don't like external safeties on defensive handguns. That's a personal preference. This particular safety doesn't seem like it would get in the way. I would prefer just the decocker. Now, Ruger did make a decocker only model of the P95, but that's been out of production for several years. In addition, the safety decocker is basically backwards if you're used to a 1911 style pistol. If you have the safety decocker in the down position, the safety is engaged and the gun won't fire, and you have to flip the safety decocker to the up position to fire. And that's exactly backwards to Ruger's SR9 lines and the venerable 1911 series. So that may be a consideration if you have other guns that you train with, having the additional burden of having two platforms that work differently. Another disadvantage of the P95 is the weight. At 27 ounces, the P95 is pretty heavy, especially for a polymer gun. Also, with the P95, you don't get some of the nicey-niceys that are often available on more modern polymer pistols. On the P95, there are no interchangeable back straps as you have on the Gen 4 Glocks and the M&P series, and there are no factory night sight options as you often see now with certain companies like Sig Sauer. So how does the P95 rate for typical handgun applications? As a first gun, I'd say the P95 would be a pretty good choice. The double to single action, at least in my opinion, minimizes the chances that a new shooter will have an accidental discharge, as not being familiar with trigger systems. Also, because the P95 is high value, brand new, less than $300, it's relatively affordable if you're new to shooting. Finally, if you're a new shooter, the goofy controls probably won't bother you since you have not had any experience with anything else. So for a first gun, I would give it a B+. How about concealed carry? Well, first, the P95 is kind of bulky, especially on the left side of the gun, because the slide stop lever protrudes out significantly from the side of the frame. I don't know if you can see that on camera too well. It's kind of a chunky weapon. In addition, the P95 is pretty heavy for concealed carry. I do concealed carry this, and I do like it, but I'm not really that weight sensitive, and I am left-handed. So the outboard side of the gun for me, because I carry strong side, this extra width where the slide stop lever protrudes doesn't bother me at all. How about as a home defense weapon? I think the Ruger P95 is a very viable home defense weapon. It's very easy to shoot. The double to single action with the decocker minimizes the chances of an accidental discharge. Vehicle gun. I would give this P95 a B+ for all the reasons set forth in the home defense role, but especially because it's under $300. So again, you don't have a lot of money tied up in the glove compartment of your car. Final application to discuss is a stash and cache gun. That's what I bought my 3 P95s for. One to keep around and two to keep in other locations. For under $300, you can get a reliable, durable 15+1 handgun. And that is going to be pretty tough to beat, especially in this new handgun market. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of fine pistols on the market, and there are a couple I think I would have rather purchased than the P95, but you just couldn't beat the value. Essentially, what it came down to is for the $1,000 I spent on 3 guns and 3 extra magazines, I could have bought 1 Sig Sauer, 2 Glocks, or 3 P95s. As a stash and cache gun, it was a no-brainer. As far as alternatives, my second choice overall would have been the Sig Sauer SP 2022. And that is a polymer 9mm. I actually like the Sig Sauer better than the P95, specifically because although the Sig Sauer has a decocker, it's a double single action, the 2022 has the decocker but no safety, and I much prefer that. But the Sig Sauer was $85 more on the purchase price, and the Sig only came with one magazine, whereas the Ruger came with two very good steel magazines. Of course, that cost becomes significant when you want 3 magazines per gun and 3 guns. It would have been nice to have the 3 SIGs as the stash and cash guns, but my budget was $1,000, and I would have went way over budget, and that would have taken it away from something else. So, final thoughts is the P95 has some quirks. It's a design that's a little bit long in the tooth, doesn't have some of the frills that are available on pricier guns. But for less than $300 for a solid, reliable weapon, especially one now that's 15+1 capacity, this P95 is really hard to beat. So thanks for watching. This is the Suburban Sentinel, along with the cat. And safe shooting, everybody, and don't give up your Second Amendment rights without a fight.